Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine-chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Wednesday. It's been snowing here in Salt Lake already. So if you live somewhere like me where it starts snowing, to me it's early, but I'm not from Utah, so I'm still getting used to it. Yeah, I'm so pumped to ski. I bought some wax this weekend for my skis and I'm so excited. I plan to ski here in Utah and then take a trip to Western Colorado to visit my friend and ski on the mesa there. And so that's exciting. That's the only reason why I'm looking forward to snow. Plus, it's pretty when it snows. But winter hiking is something that I haven't always done, and I just did it for the first time ever last year. And it's actually kind of fun. So it's very quiet, very serene. So I'm looking forward to hiking more outside in the winter and skiing. And I hope that if you live somewhere where you're not getting snow yet, just cherish every moment that you have without snow, unless you love the snow, but I don't absolutely love it. So I'm just trying to look forward to something. In other news, I hope the audio sounds a little bit better. I've started sound treating my office, and so I have more things coming in this week to sound treat, but hopefully it's not going to be too echoey. I feel like my voice isn't completely back to normal yet. It's getting there. So I feel like another week and I'll be back to normal, hopefully. It's just kind of yucky. Been kind of yucky recently. People have been sick. I've had colleagues that were sick and everything. So just stay well out there, and we know that spending time outside does help with our immune system. So another reason why you should keep going outside even in the winter. Today's case is true crime focused, and it actually has ties to Utah and Idaho, and it's not a very well-known case. So I hope you like it. Let's get into it. When a man leading a double life is found out, he commits an unspeakable act to cover his secrets. About 2 weeks ahead of law enforcement, he was able to escape into the wilderness. After 7 years, the mystery still remains. Where is he? Is he still living in the woods, off of the land? Or has he conned his way into another identity, and is he living among us? So today's case actually takes place in/near Grand Teton National Park. I actually went to Grand Teton National Park as a kid, and then I went last year as an adult to celebrate my second wedding anniversary. And it's a beautiful place. It's absolutely beautiful. The mountain range is gorgeous. The lakes, the water, everything there is gorgeous. And I will say, I've never been in the summertime, but I went shoulder season going into fall, and it was absolutely stunning, all the different colors. So I highly recommend, if you haven't been, definitely take a trip to Grand Teton National Park. And I'm also glad that I only live 6 hours away, because this is a great park that if you live in Utah, you can easily access. It is just a beautiful, beautiful area. But let's start with negative reviews. Alexander said, "I don't get the hype. This place is beyond overhyped about what it is and what it has." Frankie said, I've seen better video, sorry, I've seen better in video games, SMH, or shake my head. Mother Nature better step it up. Matthew said, wildlife is not as photogenic as I would have hoped. It was snowing in October, question mark, question mark. A local told me that happens around here and went back to eating his gluten-free paleo-vegan avocado toast. I love these comments. And I think all of these were actually being like legit serious. Yeah, I don't know. I can't believe someone would say those things about Grand Teton National Park, but you know what? Different strokes for different folks. Starting with the history of the park. So it is in northwestern Wyoming, and it was established February 26, 1929. It's approximately 310,000 acres, and it actually includes major peaks of the 40-mile-long Teton Range, as well as the most northern sections of the valley known as Jackson Hole. Grand Teton National Park is only 10 miles south of Yellowstone National Park. So when a lot of people go to Yellowstone or vice versa, they always have time to visit the other one because they are so close. Along with the surrounding national forests, these three protected areas constitute the almost 18 million acre Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which is actually one of the world's largest intact mid-latitude temperate ecosystems. That was a mouthful, but it just means that there's 18 million acres, and it is like kind of, and it's just a beautiful area that is still intact, and it's mid-latitude temperate. So with all of that entails with the climate. And honestly, I've never heard of that before, but and I can't really explain it to you because I'm not a great explainer, but super, super interesting that these areas comprise this greater Yellowstone ecosystem. In terms of the first people, the human history of Grand Teton region dates back at least 11,000 years, when the first nomadic hunter-gatherer Paleo Indians began migrating to the region during warmer months to pursue food and supplies. So when white explorers started coming over here, they actually encountered the eastern Shoshone natives. And tools actually have been found around Jackson Lake that back up this, that these people were living here nomadically for a very, very long time. One of the tools that was found is a type associated with the Clovis culture, and tools from this cultural period date back to at least 11,500 years ago. Some of the tools are actually made from obsidian. When they did a chemical analysis on these tools, and it says, the analysis came back that this obsidian source, it was sourced near present-day Teton Pass, which is south of Grand Teton National Park. And one cool thing about obsidian, if you don't know exactly what it is, it's a type of rock, and it's actually considered a glass. It's extremely sharp, and a lot of arrowheads were made of this. And it's black. There's also mahogany obsidian that looks like wood. It's got some like wood graining, kind of looks like red and brown. And then there's also snowflake obsidian, which has little flecks of like light blue, white. It looks like snowflakes. And obsidian is something that you can just gather in Utah for free. No permit required. Unless you're taking extremely large quantities. But earlier this summer, my husband and I actually went and gathered obsidian, and we had a local guy make it into some jewelry. It's a super, super pretty rock. It's very sharp, so if you do go gather it or you ever encounter it, make sure you wear gloves and long pants. It's basically glass. It can pop your car tire. So it's very sharp, but a very, very cool rock that a lot of indigenous peoples used for knives and arrowheads and everything like that. Super cool that they found tools like that near Jackson Lake. So the Lewis and Clark expedition actually passed north of the Grand Teton region. And during their return trip from the Pacific Ocean, one of the members, whose name is John Coulter, was given an early discharge so he could join two fur trappers who were heading west in search of beaver pelts. Coulter was later hired by Manuel Lisa to lead the fur trappers and explore the region around the Yellowstone River. And during the winter of like 1807/08, we're not really sure, Coulter passed through Jackson Hole and was the first Caucasian to see the Teton Range, which is super, super cool. John Coulter is widely considered the first mountain man, and like those who came to the Jackson Hole region over the next 30 years, he was there primarily for the profitable fur trapping, which people have mixed reviews about, but that's just what they did back then. There's a lot of beaver and other small animals that they trapped for their fur, and so there is Coulter Bay. So, like, if you've been to Grand Teton National Park, you've probably been to Coulter Bay, and that's who that is named after. Interestingly enough, the Valley of Jackson Hole was actually privately owned until the 1930s, when conservationists led by John D. Rockefeller Jr. began purchasing the land in Jackson Hole and added to the existing national park, which is honestly very cool of them to do. Grand Teton National Park is named for Grand Teton, the tallest mountain in the Teton Range. The naming of the mountains is attributed to the early 19th century French-speaking trappers. I'm going to try this. Les Trois Tetons, which means the three teats, and it was later anglicized and shortened to Tetons. I have heard many people say it different ways. I say Teton because that's how I've heard it said, but if you say it a different way, that's totally fine. But yes, it is basically the French trappers that named this mountain because they looked like breasts, apparently. Here's your trivia fact of the day. Some of the rocks in Grand Teton National Park are the oldest found in any American national park and have been dated at nearly 2.7 billion years old. So, Grand Teton National Park has the oldest rocks ever found in any American national park. There's more than 1,000 species of vascular plants, dozens of mammals, 300 species of birds, more than a dozen fish species, and a few species of reptiles and amphibians. So it's very diverse, just like all of the other national parks we talk about. There are more than 100 drive-in campsites and over 200 miles of hiking trails that also provide access to backcountry camping areas. This is a huge place, and because it's so close to Yellowstone and it makes up that greater Yellowstone ecosystem, it's a very, very large area of land, and that's going to come into play later when we get into our case. Grand Teton National Park is one of the 10 most visited national parks in the U.S., with an annual average of 2.75 million visitors from the time period of 2007 to 2016. So just think of that. From 2007 to 2016, there were on average 2.7, and actually in 2021, there were over 3.8 million visitors. So that is an insane amount of people that are visiting this national park. And yes, there's a lot of traffic when that happens. So if you follow any sort of true crime, you will have heard Grand Teton National Park in the headlines, and it's not the first time this park has been in the headlines for murder. In 2021, Gabby Petito, her case that heavily focused on Grand Teton National Park, and that's actually later on where they found her body, was in one of the riverbed areas in Grand Teton National Park. So it is no stranger to having its name in the headlines about murder and true crime. So that's going to actually lead us into our case today. Michael Gerald Bullinger and Cheryl Baker, they had been married for about almost 10 years. And Mike was a 60-year-old corporate pilot, and his wife Cheryl had just retired. And according to family members, Cheryl and Mike had a great marriage, or at least Cheryl thought so. Both Cheryl and Mike has been described as laid-back people by various family members. Now, Mike actually worked as a pilot at Classic Aviation Services in Utah, and he was a licensed aircraft instructor. His passion was working and playing in the outdoors, and he actually, as a younger person, he served as an outfitter slash guide for hunters. So he was very familiar with the outdoors and how to survive in the wilderness. Cheryl had just recently retired from her job as an art teacher at the Greenwood Charter School in Harrisville, Utah. Her biography on the school's website said that she had taught since 1984 and held a bachelor's degree in hearing impairment and a master's degree in education. And previously in her life, she worked with the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind. And actually, in 2011, she was awarded Teacher of the Year from the University of Utah College of Education. And later in 2012, her hearing impaired students, which I normally would never use that terminology, but her deaf and hard of hearing students drew media attention by creating an opera. Cheryl was described as a very vibrant soul who loved helping others. And I think that's evident in the work that she chose to do and eventually retired from. So the year is about 2017. Mike is 60 and Cheryl, she's a little bit younger than Mike. And I found different things online, so I can't really say for sure. But they had been married for like 7-ish, 8 years, and Cheryl had just retired. So she was looking to kind of slow down in life and enjoy the simple things. And unknown to Cheryl, Mike had been living a double life. Mike had been seeing another woman for the past 2 years. So if you look at the timeline, this incident happened in 2017, and Mike started seeing another woman in around 2015. And Mike had been having a secret relationship with a woman named Nadia Medley. Nadia had a 14-year-old daughter named Teton, and Nadia was an immigrant here, having moved from Germany to the United States years earlier. Her first husband unfortunately died of a heart attack in 2014. And at the time that Nadia met Mike, she was working at a spa when she met him. The pair started dating shortly after meeting, and Mike became a father figure to Peyton, and she even called him dad. So they must have had a really good relationship, and she must have felt extremely comfortable with this man to call him dad. And I think that just shows how good of a liar that Mike was, that he was able to con these three people into believing that, he was something that he wasn't. Mike had actually told Nadia that he had been divorced for 10 years and had been alone since. And at some point in their relationship, when Nadia expressed her financial problems and she desired to take their relationship further, Mike hesitated, and it actually led to a temporary breakup. But they did get back together and things progressed from there. Mike claimed to be, he actually said he was a divorcee, and he said he was Mormon and that he was from Montana. So Nadia had no idea at the time that this was the furthest thing from the truth. And honestly, I have no idea how someone leads a double life for years, but I know it happens. I wonder how he juggled having a wife and a girlfriend and being a stepdad figure. It's so disgusting, and it's even more disgusting what he did. And if you've heard of this case before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But whenever I see cases like this, or cases where men kill their wives, or men hire someone to kill their wives, or women kill their husbands, and vice versa, it's like, have you ever heard of a divorce? Those things they exist. And it is a much better way to end a marriage than murder. So following Cheryl's retirement and Mike taking contract work out of state, the couple decided to move out of Utah and bought a home/ranch in Caldwell, Idaho. They purchased a farmhouse near Caldwell in May of 2017. And I've seen different reports. I've seen reports that Mike and Cheryl bought this house, but then I also saw some information where Cheryl is the one that bought it, and her name was the only one on the title. So I'm not sure which is which, but just know that they bought this place and I think they were planning to eventually move there. So, this is kind of where things get a little bit hairy. Nadia and Peyton had moved into the Idaho farmhouse to live with Mike, and it seemed like everything was going great for their little family. Nadia was excited to raise farm animals and start fresh in Idaho, and it really felt like a dream come true to Nadia. She posted on her Facebook all about her new life in Idaho. Her and Peyton were so excited. She uploaded videos on this is my new backyard and it's beautiful. And so Nadia and Peyton really were on cloud nine, really enjoying this new start with this man who they loved and who was kind of taking them out of state to start over. Peyton and Nadia lived happily with Mike in their new farmhouse where they had numerous pets. Peyton also had a YouTube channel where she uploaded vlogs and trips with her mom and stepdad. Well, kind of stepdad. Everything seemed great until June 19th, 2017. On the weekend of June 9th, 2017, Nadia was supposed to make a trip back to Utah to pick up her horses, but she never showed. Not only did she not make it, but she wasn't accepting or returning calls. The last time that anyone heard from Peyton was June 6, 2017 over text. It was as if the whole family disappeared and no one had any idea of what happened. I've seen sources say different things, but basically someone's friends and family were concerned about them. It might have been Nadia's, it might have been Mike's. Someone requested a welfare check. And so the reason why a welfare check was requested is because their loved ones had not heard from them in 10 days, which was extremely unusual for Mike and Nadia. Police received this welfare check and proceeded to follow up on it. And when police arrived at 216 South KCID Road in Caldwell, Idaho, what they found was absolutely horrific. As police arrived for the welfare check, they were immediately met with a pungent and overpowering smell the moment they stepped onto the property. And this actually led them to discover 3 badly decomposed human bodies and 3 dead dogs in the shed. Due to the summer and heat, the bodies had decomposed faster, making identification difficult for quite a few days. The first 2 victims identified were Nadia Medley and her daughter Peyton, but the third victim was a total stranger and her body remained unidentified for 11 days after the discovery. It was later discovered that the third victim was Cheryl Baker, Mike's wife. But Mike, he was missing. Autopsies were done and the cause of death of all 3 victims were chilling. Gunshot wounds to the head, execution style. It was suspected that they had been dead for about 10 days. Also found at the house included dead birds and those 3 dogs that I mentioned. When Cheryl's body was identified, the family said they had no inkling of Mike's relationship with Nadia, and similarly, Nadia's friends and family had no knowledge of Cheryl. So it's no one, you have these 2 groups of people, they had no idea of the existence of the other. The exact events of June 9th remain unknown, with several theories that have been circulating. One theory is that Cheryl might have decided to surprise Mike with a visit to the property, expecting to find him, but instead discovering the dark secret that Mike had been keeping, which was his relationship with Nadia and Peyton. Or perhaps Mike was already at the house or maybe returned home later. We really don't know what happened. However, neighbors reported hearing gunshots and a woman's scream between June 6th and June 10th. It's also been reported that Mike stayed in the house for a day after the murders, sleeping alongside 3 dead bodies, which is chilling. I wonder why he stayed after that. Basically, What they know is that Mike actually got up and he went to breakfast in Nampa, Idaho, which is like the next town over. And it wasn't long after that breakfast in Nampa that Mike made his way back to Utah, where he picked up Cheryl's car at the dealership where it was being serviced. U.S. Marshals say that Mike dumped his truck and took Cheryl's car in an effort to throw off law enforcement. So after he committed these murders, he's trying to stage some things and throw the investigators off of his tail or even investigating later on. Even though the exact events remain unknown, I think all of us here listening know exactly what happened. Cheryl came up to that house that she had purchased with her husband. She was going to surprise him. She found that he was living a double life, and I think Mike snapped. As we'll talk about it later on in the episode, he was a piece of shit, and I think I think he just snapped. And so I'm disgusted by his actions and every single person that has ever done something similar. And so I think, it's like, guilty or innocent until proven guilty. But I think in this situation, we all know what happened. Police needed to find Mike. He was obviously a person of interest since day one, but no one knew his whereabouts. Cheryl's brother stated to the Idaho Statesman that learning Mike was not among the bodies was like a shock to him. When the family members learned that Mike was a person of interest, it was extremely shocking to her family. And Cheryl had actually sent a text to her friend stating, quote, "Take care of my dogs. I don't know if I'm coming back," end quote. Cheryl's brother then wondered whether Cheryl was the one who sent that or if it was Mike. We just don't know. It sounds like Mike trying to cover his tracks, but we really just don't know. There's a lot about this case that we just don't know. So with Mike missing from the property and it being a triple homicide, police started immediately searching for him. The investigation quickly spread across multiple states, including Idaho, where the bodies were found, Wyoming, and Utah, where, Mike and Cheryl lived before moving to Idaho. Now, the last confirmed sighting of Mike, which was caught on video, was June 11th, 2017, as he drove into Grand Teton National Park. He drove in through the Moran entrance in his deceased wife's car. After that, Mike has never been seen again. And on June 23rd, his car was discovered abandoned in the Pacific Creek Campground, site number 4, which is approximately 10 miles from the entrance station. After multiple extensive searches, no physical evidence was recovered from his person, nor was his body ever recovered. Investigators initially searched the Bridger-Teton National Forest area extensively when his car was found. They used police dogs, helicopters, infrared technology, you name it. They were out there. They were trying to hunt this guy down. And they've been searching since. They've had cadaver dogs go out there. Basically, investigators think that he went out and tried to complete suicide. However, we don't know because his remains have never been found. There was one possible sighting by a family hiking on a trail. They said they encountered a man with no backpack, no water, no bear spray, no nothing. He looked disheveled and out of place, and they said that when he walked by, he put his head down and he didn't say a word, which, that can be taken a lot of different ways. Sometimes I don't say a word to, people I pass by, but most of the time I'll give them a nod and say, hey. But this man, they said, was very out of place. Now, there haven't been any confirmed sightings, but investigators got a lot of tips at first. Like I said, many people believe that Mike went into the wilderness to take his life, but others aren't so sure. The victims' friends and families were very worried about this, and they were concerned that they would never see Mike face trial or their loved ones wouldn't get justice. Mike is considered to be a survivalist. When he was younger, he was a horse packer early in his life in the Yellowstone region, and he worked as a guide for a couple of Yellowstone outfits in the Thoroughfare and Lamar areas. Because of his familiarity with the region, Mike had an advantage. He also had a big lead. He had like 10 to 14 days to get away. There is some evidence, but investigators can't disclose it. They say it's to protect the investigation in case Mike is still alive and is out there somewhere. If Mike is dead, investigators believe he is outside of the search zone that they've already searched. This case was featured on In Pursuit with John Walsh and was still getting tips years after. So, did this family man just snap? Of course not. There had been signs dating back to the 70s. Former wife of Mike was not shocked to see the news. Mike's first wife, Jackie Garcia, said the pilot had a history of infidelity, lying, and manipulation, and violence. His behavior has been described as selfish and even sociopathic. At one point, Jackie said that she feared Mike would kill her. Jackie remembers her ex-husband as just a dishonest person. And when she first met Mike, they were actually freshmen at Ricks College, which is now known as Brigham Young University, Idaho, in Rexburg in the 1970s. Mike served on a mission to Manila in the Philippines in 1976 and married Jackie in the Salt Lake City temple soon after his return in 1978. But Jackie said things swiftly changed. She said, quote, "I knew it was a mistake as soon as I got home from the honeymoon," end quote. She was actually married to Mike for 10 years, and the pair had 2 children. This marriage ended in divorce in 1988 after years of physical abuse and infidelity on Mike's part. He quickly began a relationship with a woman who went on to become his second wife. That relationship also ended due to infidelity. Because Mike actually started seeing Cheryl, whom then he married, and Cheryl was the one that we were talking about earlier. So Mike was just scum, right? I think we all know at least one person like this. Mike was scum. He cheated on his wives. He was physically abusive to his wives, and this was a pattern. So no, he didn't just snap, like some people might say. There had been signs of his abuse and dishonesty since the 70s, so like 30-something years. Friends of Nadia's say that Mike and Nadia were very similar. Rebecca Lorenz told Crime Watch Daily that both of them were ardent atheists, which is shocking because, I just said that Mike was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but then when he's with Nadia, he's an atheist. Now, Mike's first wife said that they believe that this is all part of his manipulation because around Cheryl, his wife, she is actually a Hindu, and Mike actually learned Sanskrit. I'm doing awful today, but Mike actually learned Sanskrit and attended Sri Ganesha Hindu Temple of Utah, where both Mike and Cheryl were listed as members. So if you can see a trend, this person is like a chameleon. He was LDS, but then he is a member of this Hindu temple, but then he's an atheist. None of it makes sense. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but I think we all know what this is, and it's not just having freedom of religion. Mike has been described as a sociopath by multiple people. We all know that these kind of people will never choose to end their own lives. So basically, Mike killed these 3 women. And one of them was a child. He killed 2 women and a kid. And friends and families of the victims question why Mike, who had been caught in infidelity in both of his previous marriages, turned to violence this time. In his past marriages, they just ended in divorce. So they're wondering why Mike killed these people. But those who knew Mike knew that He had a dark side, and they don't believe that he went out into the wilderness to end his own life. Now, Cheryl, Nadia, and Peyton all deserved better. It was a cruel and senseless act that cut their lives short. Cheryl's obituary described her as an adventurous and kind person. She loved helping others, and music was a great passion of hers. Her obituary read, quote, "My life has been full of friends, furry and human. We laughed a lot, and there was always time in my life to help others. I hope you will always remember me for my love of life and love of people," end quote. So yeah, Cheryl's obituary was written in first person. It was very touching and just very sad because it actually mentioned her husband, Mike. And that's just insane to me that someone's obituary would mention their murder, but that's what her family chose to do. Nadia will be remembered as a kind-hearted person who loved her daughter and had a love for life. Her friends and family described her as a wonderful mom with great morals and a friend to all. Peyton was the most kind-hearted girl that friends had ever met. She was incredibly sweet. She wore her heart on her sleeve, and she had the brightest smile. She lit up anybody's day. Now, for Nadia and Peyton, they didn't have public obituaries online, but I'm just taking what I found out of a news report about them. Now, I want to talk theories. No one knows what happened the day of, but I think we all can speculate how it went down. In terms of Mike, I just don't know where he's at. A theory could be he could have dumped his car there at the campsite and made his way into Canada. It's not too far away from Canada. Or he could have just moved to a rural area and is doing odd jobs and living below the radar. I don't really know. I think that it's possible he dumped his car at that campsite and then hitchhiked out of the park. What are your theories? Has he found a new woman or family to con? Investigators seem to think that the answer to Mike's location might be solved by hikers in the future, but I'm really not so sure about that. I think Mike's out there somewhere, living life among the rest of us. As always, recreate responsibly and make sure to have fun. And remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.